Hello, I'm Chef Richard Miller. Welcome to Chef Richard's Kitchen. Today I want to do a little baking. Specifically, I want to make some bread. Let's make some brioche bread. Everybody likes brioche. It's a sweeter bread. It's an egg bread. And let's go ahead and I want to make this two ways. I want to make it one as a braided loaf. And with the second half of the batch, I want to make some buns. And I specifically want to make some hamburger buns because we're going to make an episode of making our own different types of hamburgers, and I want to use them for the buns. So right away, let's go ahead and let's get started. First thing we're going to need is we're going to need some flour, milk, softened butter. We're going to need sugar, vanilla, yeast, flour, and eggs. All right. And this is the 2 cups of flour we're going to put in our initial batch. So we begin by pouring in our milk, our yeast, and that's about a tablespoon and a half of yeast. I'm using a commercial baker's yeast, so it doesn't come in the packets. I like this better because to me it seems to rise a little bit better. And I want to put in the 2 cups of flour. Right, so let me go ahead and let's put this on the old KitchenAid. Personally, I don't know where I'd be without the KitchenAid. And no, they're not sponsoring me. Right. So let's go ahead and let's get this started blending a little bit. While that's blending, let's go ahead and whisk together our 6 eggs. Now that we're getting our initial batter here done, let's go ahead and scrape down the edges like this, and we'll go ahead and do a little more mixing. Once this is mixed in and incorporated well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the rest of the ingredients in there. And we're going to add the next probably 4 cups, maybe a little bit more flour, depending on what the dough is like at the time. So let me now take and I'm going to put part of the eggs in. The sugar. The vanilla, and that's just a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and the butter. Normally just softened butter will work. I took mine and I put it for a couple of seconds in the microwave to soften it up just a little bit. Alright, now let's go ahead and let's blend this a little more. And we're going to get it'll be a yellowish mixture because of the egg yolk. And when it gets to the point where it's all incorporated in, it's time to add the rest of the egg and start adding the remaining flour. There's the remaining egg. And let's start putting in the rest of our flour. We're probably going to need 6 cups total. And I put in the first 2 already. I'm going to put in 2 now. go ahead and let's mix these in. I don't want to start this off too high because I don't want to get drenched in flour spitting up out of here. We'll just wait a second here until this gets blended in. It does take a while. And then we're going to actually let it knead in here for probably, between 5 and 8 minutes, something like that. When we knead it and let it go in with the dough hook here, that's actually when the gluten is going to form, and that's what's going to make everything stay nice and tight together. Scrape it down again. It's getting pretty well blended in now. Probably getting time for another addition of flour. Once again, start it off slow. It's starting to get in a good dough consistency now, but I can also tell by the look of it, it's still awfully wet. So I'm going to go ahead and let it knead a little bit like this, and then we're going to put in a little more flour. A lot of this is you just have to kind of go by, when it's still a little moist, still a little formable, yet when you pick it up, it doesn't run between your fingers either. When you first put the flour in, it looks like, oh, this is just the right consistency. But then after it works a little bit, you realize, it's still pretty wet. So let's add a little bit more. There it's starting to form. We'll probably need just one more addition of flour, and we should be okay. I don't want to get too much flour in here either, because the drier you make it, the harder it is for the yeast to rise it. Okay, this is looking better. You can also tell when the KitchenAid starts chugging along, you know it's getting a little heavy. Yeah, this is about right. Okay. Now while that's going and it's doing its kneading, let's go ahead and I'm gonna spray a bowl here with a little vegetable spray, and that's just so when we take it out after it's risen, it doesn't stick too bad and we don't have to go in there and scoop it out. Okay, it's been about time. Let's go ahead and pull this down, take our dough hook out, and it's time we put it in the bowl to let it rise. Okay, now we're going to put this in a reasonably warm spot for a while, and probably about an hour. And we're going to let this rise until it about doubles in size. So let me go ahead and put the dough here and cover it. And we'll be back in an hour. Don't go away. Welcome back. It's been an hour, so let's go ahead and take a look at our bread. As you can see here, it's risen very nicely, and we're now ready to go on to the next step where we're going to take it and form it into a loaf. Let's grab a little flour and go ahead and sprinkle that and move it out on our cutting board. There's where you put the spray in there. And let's go ahead and turn this over. What we want to do now is we want to cut it in half, because we're going to take one half and we're going to make our loaf with it, and we're going to take the other half and we're going to make the buns with it. Alright, so let me go ahead and take this, put it back in the bowl again. And now to make a braided bread, what we're going to do is we're going to cut this into 3 strips. Now that we've cut it in 3 strips, let's go ahead and get our baking sheet here. And I used to grease these, put a little Crisco or something like that on there. But I've kind of given that up, and I now use parchment paper. And you can get this just in regular, sheets that fit this half-size baking sheet here. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. Let me start the oven here, and we're going to take these and we're going to braid them, and then we're going to let them rise again. So go ahead and put one down the center, put one over the top of it at an angle, and then put another one right over the top of it like this. All right, now what you're going to do is to take and braid this, back again, over the top, oops, wrong way, this way, and when you get to the end, just go ahead and pinch it. Now let's go over here and let's do the same thing back here. Okay. Go ahead and put this on our baking sheet. And now it's time to put an egg wash on it. Now an egg wash is just simply one egg, mixed in with a little bit of water, whisked together, and now using a pastry brush, go ahead and brush this on our loaf. Alright, just like that. Now, we've gone ahead and we've gotten our loaf braided. We've got it egg washed on here. Now it's time, we need to let it rise just a little bit more. So I'm going to cover it again and put it back up here where we can go ahead and let it rise again, and then we can bake it. Okay, now remember the other half of the batch that we made. Let's go ahead and I want to make some buns out of this. So let's go ahead and cut this like this. And now we're going to take and make it into a round shape. When you go to the bread store or the supermarket and you take a look at what they're charging for brioche buns, you all of a sudden realize what a bargain it is to make your own. And I had a couple of them from when I tried this earlier before I turned the camera back on. I wanted to go ahead and try figuring out what size it was, so I made a couple of them. Go ahead and put those on here. Now, you're going to look at these and you're going to say, well, they're not the same size. Well, you're right. They're not. On the other hand, they're not bakery either. So now we're going to go ahead, we're going to cover these. Go ahead and straighten our parchment out. Go ahead and cover these. We're going to let these rise now while the braided loaf is baking. So I'm going ahead and put this on. We're going to let it rise. Okay, now we've let it rise just a little bit more. We've got our egg wash on here. Now it's time we're going to put it in the oven. We're going to put it in the oven at 350 degrees, and we're going to look at it in probably about 20 minutes. We're going to take a look then. It should be nice and golden brown on the top. It should have doubled about it should have risen about a third in size. Set the timer for 20 minutes and we'll see what it looks like. It's been 20 minutes and actually I added 6 minutes to that. So figure at 350 degrees you're going to spend about 26 minutes. Now let's go ahead and take it out of the oven. There. That's what your loaf should look like. It should be golden brown on the edges here, and it should be nice and warm in the center. We're going to let this cool down a little bit. So now it's time to put the buns in. So there I put the hamburger buns in. Now let's go ahead, we'll cook them for probably, well, if these took 26 minutes for this thickness, let's put it in for 20 and see what it is at that time. All right, now we've put our buns in, we've let them bake for about 20 minutes. I actually did add 2 on there, so the total time is 22 minutes at 350 degrees. Let's take them out and see what they look like. Those are some actually darn good looking buns. In a future episode, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make hamburgers that are going to be both pepper jack and bacon cheddar. And we're going to actually use these as buns. So until then, be good, be careful, may God bless you. And remember, cooking should be fun.